Alright, I just thought I'd shoot a quick video on plying the yarn that you saw me do in episode 5. There was yarn that I did on a quill that I didn't get in a take, and then the second quill that I did, you actually saw me spin during that episode, and now I'm going to ply them together. I'm going to start just by twisting it around the tip here and adding some twist to the line, and then I can move this back and actually start plying. I tried to shoot in front of this white background so that you'd be able to see the yarn itself, and I'm hoping that's working, even though I'm wearing a dark sweater and my arm is probably in the way as well. There's not much to plying. I don't really over twist the yarn as I'm going, so it doesn't try to rat tail on me too much when I get to this point, and especially if I'm plying the day after, like I'm doing today. It's really not set in twist, so it's not trying to fight me for that either. Just got off work, ran home, and tried to get all my stuff together, and I've about lost the light. But we'll see if we've got enough to get this done. You guys saw this dough deck in the second episode. I kind of have a dough deck just set up for plying. So not only do I have an 18-inch dowel rod that I make the spindle out of, so that I've got quite a bit of room for all of this yarn I'm putting on here, but I actually counterweight the dowel rod behind the stem so that you don't have to worry about putting all this weight out on this end and kind of putting the rotation in a bind. It's really easy to do, and you don't make any modifications to the wheel itself. You just make yourself a plying spindle. I call mine Godzilla because it's huge, and that's it. You just put it in when you want to ply, but I actually just made a second dough deck and mounted mine so that I would have a dough deck to spin on and a dough deck to ply on. Even if I'm spinning yarn on my porter wheel, I'll go ahead and ply them on this one, just so that I don't have to set up something else. I don't know how many of you out there that have built the dough deck have built spares, but I sure love my spares. I have one at the in-laws so that I can spin anytime I'm there on holidays and such, because our in-laws live a couple hours away. So when we're up there for the weekend, I don't want to have to haul my fiber and haul my wheel. And have one at my parents' house so that when we're out there, all I have to do is take some wool with me. I don't have to take my wheel. And then, of course, I have my dough deck here, my porter wheel here, and then my plying dough deck. I have been knitting the past week with some of this yarn, and I love it. this was a really neat fleece, and I really enjoyed, making stuff with it. I'm hoping that maybe this can be a cowl to match the hat that I've already done with it. I did a slouchy stocking cap on size 15 needles with 48 stitches around. It was chunky for sure, but I'm only using this what would probably be a worsted or a maybe an Aran weight, but that's only because it's so lofty. It's because of the fluff, not because of the actual amount of wool that's in it. Anyways, so it's 48 stitches around. I probably go 30 stitches high before I start my bind off, and I bind off in 6, like on a 6 axis. So, my first row around, I'll do 6 knit stitches and then a knit 2 together, and then I do that 6 times. Then the next row around, I'll do 5 knit stitches and then a knit 2 together, and just like that until I get all the way through it. The hat looks very plain, except I do a ribbed brim, so I do about 8 rows of knit 2, purl 2, and that ends up making it kind of look ordinary to knitters, but actually to non-knitters, they love this chunky, lofty texture in a really thick pattern that they can see. So like when you're talking about that size 15, stitch definition, it's pretty big, it's pretty obvious, and so they really enjoy that, and it makes for a lofty hat. So now I finished with the 2 that I spun since yesterday, and I'll have to wind this off. One of them had more yarn on it than the other, but I've gotten to the point where what I like to do is stop when you get to the bottom of one quill, because then whatever's left on that other quill you can either just fold in, like I've got quills in the house that have just a little bit left, and I could come out, put those on the Lazy Kate and fold that in while I'm working off the other, or I can actually pick up that quill when I start spinning again, and it's got a little on it, and I can add to that, and maybe that'll be the short quill next time, and I'll actually use all of that and have a little left over on the other one. But essentially, because I know that I'm going to be doing so much of this wool, like 4 or 6 pounds of it, that I don't have to be in a hurry to get rid of what's on that quill. And it's not like a flyer machine where, that's holding up a bobbin. I mean, that's just a roll of paper, so I can have as many of them sitting free as I want. And if I get maybe like 3 of those small quills lying around, I'll just spin one big quill, and then I'll fold those 3 in as I go as the ply, and that works really nice. Since that was pretty quick, and usually the plying is pretty quick, I think I'm going to go get my hat so that you can see what I'm working on, and it's the same wool, so be right back. Okay, so this is the hat I've been working on, and so these are the size 15 circular needles, and this yarn, like I said, is only like a worsted, maybe an Aran, but it actually does a really good job of filling in what should be kind of a loose fabric, but it's not because of the heft of the yarn. And I'll tell you that one of the reasons that happens is because you go from lock to carding or drafting this wool out, but then you spin it into a single and ply it like within a day or 2 days time. It really doesn't have time to compress down and stuff. By the time I wind it off in a ball and it gets to relax, just a couple days after it was actually in fleece form, it makes for a much loftier yarn. than what it would be had you wound on those singles and let them rest, and then got around to plying them and let it rest, then wound it off into a ball, then let it rest, and then sometime eventually knit it. We're going from the fleece to the knit product in just a matter of days, and it actually is closer to the fleece at this form because it's been relaxed and has just got to sit here, and it's really nice. And it's pretty thick, even though there's not a lot of material there, but that's because of the lofty nature of doing it this way. Low twist. It also helps that it's the long draw, because that kind of lets fiber lay as it wants instead of being forced by your hands into this, kind of pulled out and oblong lock that, is then twisted up. I wouldn't say this is a lofty yarn, or I wouldn't say this is a woolen yarn. Of course, it is, pretty woolen, but if you were trying to make a woolen yarn, I wouldn't think that you would want to do long draw unless you were spinning from the fold or something of that nature, because when I use long draw, the fibers really seem to align themselves on their own, even without you monitoring it with your other hand. If you're pulling off the back of a lock, the back actually pulls the next part out by its back, and then the last part to come out of your hands is the tip, but it's pulling the tip of the next piece. It's really amazing how it lines up and how it takes care of the work while all you're doing is pulling the mass of fiber back off of it. But this hat is very comfortable, and I like it. I'm probably getting pretty close to binding off. I do want it to be slouchy, but I don't want it to be so long that it just kind of hangs off the back like a Dr. Seuss hat. So I do think that probably tonight I will start my decreases, and that doesn't take any time at all. When you're at 48 stitches around and you're decreasing by 6 every row, it goes super fast. This is a great knit, and I don't know if you can see the ribbed brim, but it just, is there to keep this hat from being a roll brim hat, because otherwise that's what it would be. Well, I thought we would maybe squeak one out before we lost too much light, but it is getting dark now, and I don't want to keep you here just watching me knit. Thank you for everybody who's been watching the podcast, and I appreciate you guys being considerate of the fact that I don't really have time to interact on boards and things of that nature, but I do want to give you as much opportunity to see the process as you can. Especially spindle wheels aren't really covered that well in what we're used to as far as the fiber community goes. There's a lot of flyer coverage, but it's a little harder to find spindle videos and things of that nature. So I just want to do my part in circulating some of this, and I hope you guys are liking it, and maybe some of you would be inspired to share what you have, not with me, but with each other. All right, well, I'm going to have to go inside and contribute to the homemaking, so I will see you guys later. Hey guys, so the video yesterday ran a little short, and I'm putting this in as an add-on. This is the Porter wheel. I'm going to be carding some of the remnants from stuff that we've been drum carding inside, things that we've been pulling off the liquor brush is what I've brought out to card now. And because it's white wool, I wore something dark so that you'd be able to see it in contrast. These are second cuts here, and they're not going to blend in well, so I'm going to go ahead and pull them out and let them be free. Alright, we got to get started here, so we're going to wrap some fiber around the end of the spindle. Now, since I'm on uneven ground, I'm going to brace the wheel with my left foot, just so I didn't have to find a perfectly flat piece of lawn to put the wheel on, but that lets me keep it steady while I'm treadling with my right foot. Alright, so now that we've got our leader, we just put it in back, wind it on, and we're good to go. I really enjoy spinning on the Porter wheel, mainly because it doesn't look like it's a legitimate wheel. It kind of looks like it shouldn't work, and although the Dodec does to a degree as well, but when people see it in public, they think, I don't know, it's like some kind of foot-powered Swift or whatever. But even though we use a cross configuration for the drive wheel, it's actually an octagon, because the angle or the distance between these two corners is the same as the distance between these two corners. So that gives us a perfect octagon all the way around, and it makes it run really smooth as a drive wheel, even though all you've done is nail two boards together. So the hat I was knitting on earlier in this episode is the hat that you see on the little girl at the beginning of the video. That's my daughter Marina. And the reason I did that is to show that when you knit in these very large gauges, the knitted fabric is very elastic. So I'm going to have the picture at the beginning with her wearing the hat, and then a picture probably just before this segment with me wearing the hat to show, it's the same hat and it fits us both well. And it actually stretches well beyond, what my whole head needs, even though it's still not, really stretched to an uncomfortable position or whatnot. We can really do one size fits all if we use lofty yarns and are knitting on size 15 needles, because the knitted material is so elastic. Now when you leave these lofty parts in here, they make a nice yarn ultimately, but what happens as you're winding on with a spindle wheel or with a flyer wheel is that those will get pressed between different layers of yarn that's getting wrapped around. And then when you go to use this quill or whatever bobbin you've used to wind it onto to wind off your lazy Kate while plying, that fluff gets caught between two other strands of yarn, and that's where you can run into some issues with the yarn not coming off of the bobbin or not coming off of the quill as easily. So you just have to keep in mind of that, or maybe not try to compact the yarn that you're spinning on the quill. Maybe don't wrap it on as hard. I don't guess you can control that on the flyer wheel because it's kind of set by your Scotch tension or your double drive. It's not something that you're controlling by hand, but on the quill wheel you can wrap it more loosely so that it doesn't bite down on those knobs. So this is the first podcast in December, I believe. It's like December 6th this came out, I think. It's still just the 15th of November here, so it's hard to keep straight how far out we are with these podcasts. I'm really liking this color. I'm actually using a friend of mine's spindle right now in my porter wheel. Luann Stool, that's in my spinning groups, made a dough deck recently and did a great job, but she didn't sand back the corners on the spindles enough, and I told her I would take it and sand them back a bit and then bring them back to her, and I did that to two of her spindles, and this is one of them, because I had a high-speed spindle on here this morning and didn't want to film using that, so I switched over to one of her spindles to make sure that it was working right, and it's doing great. I don't know what kind of results you guys get when you're spinning, but this spinning just seems to go incredibly fast, even considering the fact that I'm also carding the wool as we go. It just, every half-hour session we have, I've got at least an ounce of yarn on the quill, and that's while trying to take it slow enough that I can give instruction and not grease over anything. The weather's getting a bit better, or I'm getting more used to it, although it could be the sweater. I bought this sweater on our last trip before the kids were born. We went to Ireland and went to the Aran Islands, and I bought this sweater off of Inishmore in a little shop where the lady was knitting them, and I love it, but it's real wool, and if I had to guess, I would say it's Jacob's wool, because certainly in Connemara, almost all they raise is Jacob's wool. Now that's a little north of the Aran Islands, so I'm not really sure if that's where they're getting their wool from or if they have a source that's more local. But at least when we were there, they weren't really raising sheep on the islands anymore, so they were definitely getting their mill-spun yarn from local wool producers.